Hello sim racers and welcome back to the Fixed Setup Oval Racing Guide. This week we'll be looking at week 8 of season 1, which runs from February 1st through the 8th. Hope you found some success last week. It looked like a lot of people were gravitating towards ARCA as their favorite combo of the week, and as last week's poll showed, by a wide margin, ARCA was what you guys really seem to get into. I put up a poll, or I'm going to now, every week, probably Wednesday or Thursday, so make sure you check back on the community tab and vote in each week's poll to let me know which one you like the most. Leave a comment on that poll as well to let me know why you voted that way. I'm curious. I love analyzing this stuff, getting data to understand what people like, what they prefer. It's just fascinating to me. I did watch a few Twitch streamers throughout the week, and every time it seemed I tuned in, they were doing B Fixed at Darlington, and every race just looked like a demo derby, man. That was rough stuff, but it's Darlington, so I don't know what else to expect. This week, we got a nice split between short tracks and big ovals, but if you're not into that stuff, luckily, next week, well, A Fix, B Fix, and C Fix start to follow the real-life NASCAR schedule, and that means we're going to Daytona. So be ready for some super speedway racing next week. Good opportunity there. You could lose some safety rating as well. But just as a friendly reminder, these episodes are always timestamped for your convenience. So if you're looking for one series in particular, use the timestamps listed in the description below. And with that said, let's check out this week's races. Before we begin, please take a moment to listen to my disclaimers. As with any skill-based activity, your mileage may vary with the information shared in this video. Sim racing requires individual effort to improve, and simply watching a video will not make you a better sim racer. Tips and tricks are not one size fits all, and you may need to adjust based on your skill level. These episodes are recorded before the week begins, so the guided qualifying lap should not be viewed as the gold standard for the best lap time possible. Treat this information simply as a starting point for your own practice routine. Any analysis or commentary that I provide comes from my own experience on iRacing and may not always directly translate to what happens to you. I'm human, I make mistakes, and I can be wrong. I try my best to avoid errors and misinformation, but if I do make a mistake, you have my apology in advance. The ARCA Menard Series heads to North Wilkesboro Speedway, the site of last week's A Fixed that nobody really liked. This race is 40 laps in length and takes place at 1:50 p.m. in sim. For my qualifying run, I used a 12-to-1 steering ratio and 63% brake bias. Now, I'll tell you, this is a challenging lap, as the way you get through turn 1 will have a lot to say about whether your lap is actually good or not. Getting to the bottom is imperative here, but you don't want to get there too soon. We'll see what I mean in the guided lap. Speaking of which, we're going to try something a little bit different this week, as suggested by a member of the community. We're going to do the normal guided lap, and then right after that, a full uninterrupted lap as well. Let me know down in the comments section how you like this change. Start by getting a good run out of turn 4 and use the beginning of the outside row of dashed lines as your reference point for turn 1. Take a long arc towards the bottom and get those left side tires by the grass as you approach the Holly Farms sign. Be very careful to not clip the grass, or you will either invalidate your lap or lose traction. Use the Holly Farms sign after the opening in the backstretch wall as your reference point for turn 3. Let the car rotate around the bottom and carefully apply throttle to complete the lap. The rear end is really going to struggle for grip here, so be careful as you attempt to get the power down. My lap time was an 18.583, but a great lap time will be in the 18.3 range. For the race, I recommend sticking with the lowest steering ratio you can comfortably control. So whether that's 12-1 like in qualifying or bumping it up to 14-1, whatever you feel best using, that's what I would go with. Even though this is a short track, tire wear will matter. It really actually matters a lot, surprisingly. So do the best you can to save tires by backing up those corner entries and using the brakes to slow the car instead of just lifting and coasting in. I expect this to be another typical ARCA short track shit show, so good luck surviving out there and trying to have some fun. C Fixed goes to the USA International Speedway for some bump and grind short track racing that, in my opinion, will probably match or hell, maybe even surpass the chaos that we saw at Myrtle Beach a few weeks ago. I don't know what it is. C Fixed and short track racing just do not mix lately. I don't know why. This race is 60 laps in length, good lord, and takes place at 7:05 p.m. in sim. For my qualifying lap, I used a 12-1 steering ratio and 63% brake bias. Using a strong run out of turn 4 to start the lap, use the last caution light as a reference point for turn 1. You'll want to start slowing down before you get to this. It's really important to let the truck roll the center off the brakes on the bottom and then get the power down as you arc out of turn 2. Just like turn 1, use the caution light after the break in the wall as a reference point for turn 3. Again, let the truck roll the center on the bottom off the brakes, and by the time you see the pit wall barrels, you should be able to get back to the throttle. My lap time was a 20.929. Like I said for ARCA, use the lowest steering ratio that you can comfortably control, whether that's 12-1 or 14-1, for this race. You're going to want that quick response for the short track racing, and with some of the rear grip loss that this truck demonstrates, it'll help you stay ahead on your counter steering if you do get loose. Simply put, if you're not fond of short track racing, this week's probably going to be a bit of a challenge for you, but it's a really good opportunity to learn some good fundamentals as well. You might get beat by a lot of people this week, but try to observe how they're driving, look at their braking points, and maybe see if they'll share their tire wear after a run with you as well. The more data you can have at your disposal to improve, the better. B Fixed heads to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the most historic and famous tracks in the entire world. This race is 35 laps and takes place at noon in sim. My qualifying run, I tested at 14-1 and 16-1 steering ratios, and I felt more consistent at 14-1. You don't have to worry about tire wear, you're just going for one fast lap. So 14-1 would be my recommendation, along with a 61% brake bias. It is a long lap around the Brickyard, and there are plenty of opportunities to ruin it. So this qualifying run, while easier than last week's at Darlington, is still plenty challenging to get right. I recommend doing everything you can to get heat into the tires on your warm-up lap, because I found that I was faster consistently on lap 1 than lap 2 on all of my qualifying runs. This qualifying lap really starts coming out of turn 3, so make sure you nail turn 4 or you're just going to be giving up a lot of time down this long front straightaway. Use the last caution light as your reference point for turn 1. A perfect entry will see you carrying good speed with light brake pressure and getting the left side tires below the white line but off of the rumble strip. Each corner you want to flatten as much as possible, so do your best to cut under the white line, but again, stay off the rumble strips. They'll just disrupt the car. The car might feel really floaty on corner exit, and you might lose rear grip if you're too aggressive with the throttle, but do the same for turn 2 as you did for turn 1, and use that caution light as a reference point. Getting out of turn 2 is critical since it's a very long back straightaway, and any slip up, again, is just going to cost you time. Use the 1 board as a reference point for turn 3. You can start slowing just past this. It's the same rule of thumb for turns 3 and 4 as for turns 1 and 2, with regards to getting the left side tires below that white line, but off of the rumble strip. As you exit turn 4, the car will get very loose if you're aggressive with the throttle, so be ready to react to that. Again, precious time is at stake at every corner of this track, but nailing the exits of turns 2 and 4 are absolutely essential to getting a good lap time. My lap time was a 53.605. I recommend testing at 14:1 and 16:1 steering ratio for the race. Depending on how you drive the car, you might lose rear grip, but if you're overdriving the corner entry, you're going to be melting the right front. So a lot of this has to do with your driving style. Go with whatever you feel most comfortable using, but remember, if the car stays neutral or gets tighter during the run, I'm going to recommend you run with the higher steering ratio. You'll also want to consider adjusting the brake bias as a long green flag run goes, especially if the car gets tight. That will help you turn in as well. In the past, Be Fixed at Indy has been about saving tires and not messing up the corner exit 4 times a lap. I don't see this week being any different. Long straightaways mean great passing opportunities if you can get off the corner better than the driver in front of you. I urge you to be patient. This is a very long race. Remember, any brush with the wall that causes aero damage is going to absolutely destroy your chances of finding success. A Fixed goes to the 2011 version of Kentucky Speedway, the bumpy version of an awful track that I absolutely can't stand. This race is 50 laps in length and takes place at noon in sim. And for my qualifying run, I used a 16:1 steering ratio and 64% brake bias, but you might find a little bit more success with 14:1. As always, go with the lowest ratio that you can comfortably control. Carefully cut the front stretch, but don't let the car arc all the way out to the wall before you get to turn 1. You can use the Kentucky 1 logo on the wall as a reference point for where you should start breathing the throttle. Hold the wall down the back straightaway and then look for a white line that goes halfway across the track as your reference point for turn 3. Fight the car through the bumps as best you can. It's a really rough ride, especially on the bottom, and cut the front stretch once more as much as you can. My lap time was a 30.638, but again, I don't like this track, and there's probably at least 2/10, if not more, still left there on the table. I don't know if I'm going to do any A-Fix this week, but if I do, I'll be using a 16-to-1 steering ratio in race, as the car is only going to get tighter as the run goes on, and saving that right front tire is going to be really important for long run speed. This track will favor the second lane as opposed to the very bottom. I don't recommend using the bottom at all. So use that to your benefit. Use that second lane and assume that if somebody goes to the bottom to try and pass you, they're probably going to come back up the track because of the bumps that are down there, and you're going to get doored or just wrecked. So be aware of that when people go down there. Like I said, you're unlikely to see me out there in A-Fix this week, but if you do, just say something positive to me. I'm probably going to need it. And just like that, you're now briefed and ready to start practicing for this week's races. I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode and found the information to be educational, but most importantly, helpful. If it was, please leave a thumbs up, and if it wasn't, a thumbs down, so I know to do better next time. If you want to see more iRacing content similar to this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn notifications on so that you never miss an episode. Additionally, you can catch me live streaming iRacing on my Twitch channel, linked down in the description below. If you want to get in touch with me and stay up to date on the latest channel activity, the best way to do that is to follow me on Twitter, also linked down in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, and have a great week of racing.